Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about episode 7 of WandaVision, which we're reaching the end of the show. We have 2 episodes left after this point, and I think we've officially reached the 3rd act of the entire season. We've reached the point where we got the big end of the 2nd act reveal, which we will talk about in a minute here, but we've reached this point of the show, so we are going to be talking about full spoilers for everything that has come prior up to this point. So jump in, guys, get excited. And I will also preface with me saying that I have not read any of the comics, so I'm no expert in that, but I have read some Wikipedia pages because I was kind of torn apart in one of my videos because I was a little clueless. So I know a little bit, but I am still by no means an expert at the subject. I just love talking about this show and about Marvel. I love all these things, and this episode was one of my favorites for a very specific reason. So let's just jump in with just a straightforward recap of this episode. So we start off with Wanda, doing a full The Office type of sitcom thing, which, I haven't seen a lot of the sitcoms that the show has been riffing off of, but of course I've seen The Office, and how much I loved the little zoom-ins that they did and all the bits of them talking to the camera. So entertaining, so fun, and just I love the sitcom aspects of this show because it's so funny. It adds such a layer of comedy, and the references that they can do, as obscure as they can be, to as obvious as it is with the intro of this episode being so overtly Office, which was kind of amazing. I loved all the different cards that they had. Even the music was so reminiscent of the Office theme, which I absolutely love, and I have on a playlist. It was just very fun to see this, but the humor in this with Darcy and Vision stuck in a wagon car trying to get, and they keep on getting stuck at red lights, and children walking by and people like construction workers trying to fix a road, stopping them from getting any progression to actually getting to where they need to go, which was really, really entertaining until Vision just kind of flew off. But that kind of subplot in this episode was more for the comedic aspect. I love the moments where Vision was talking to the camera. He's like, why am I doing this? And he takes off his lavalier mic and he pushes away the boom mic and just walks away. Very funny stuff. But when it comes to Wanda, this is her episode, and you get it right from the intro with it just, saying Wanda's name instead of Vision's for the most part to the very end. But this is about her kind of reconciling what's going on. She's starting to lose control of this entire thing. Things are changing and shifting between decades, between all the different sitcoms that we've seen before. We get to see the Stork again, all these fun aspects, and she's losing control. Her kids, she sends them to Agnes, and she's just kind of taking care of them so she can have her alone day, a day to herself. Is it a case of the Mondays? Is she actually losing control? Is she letting things slip? And she even mentions maybe nothing matters anymore. Maybe everything is meaningless. And maybe this entire thing that she has possibly created, whether she knows how it started or not, which she clearly has no clue of how exactly it started, but she's just kind of trying to grasp what's happening to her. And this was one of my favorite episodes for Elizabeth Olsen in particular, because her performance in this episode at the beginning with being so comedic and so funny and so fun when she's talking to the camera, and being able to bounce between all these styles of acting between every decade was very impressive to see. In this episode in particular, of her really getting to dive into this character and into the mentality that she's been dealing with throughout this entire season was very, very good. And again, with the sitcom thing, when Agnes takes the kids and Wanda's like, oh, Agnes doesn't bite, and it cuts to her like interview of her saying, I once bit a kid. And it's so funny. I love jokes like that. Sugar Pine 7 did that all the time, where they would say something and then it'd pause and then have the voiceover saying the exact same thing, or vice versa. Very funny stuff. I loved the sitcom aspect of this episode. And in terms of the outside world, we finally get our reveal of the aerospace engineer that we've all been hyped up for the past few episodes, and I think that is a clear case of the internet overhyping something because they think it could possibly be Reed Richards or Blue Marvel or all these crazy different characters that they can pick from the Marvel universe, which would have been really cool to see, and I would have been very excited to learn about these characters. I even did research about Blue Marvel because I was so convinced it was either going to be him or Reed Richards, but of course it was neither of them. We got Major Goodner, which I looked up the name and I couldn't really find anything about Goodner besides a comic book artist by the name of Goodner who did some of the Thor comic art. So I couldn't really find anything, although I did very brief research because I was in the middle of the episode when I was trying to grasp who this Goodner person was, but seemed to not be as exciting as we all hoped it would be. But in terms of the outside world, the most exciting thing was, you got Jimmy Woo, and you got, of course, Monica Rambeau trying to get back inside of the Hex, and her getting to this giant space rover that's a really cool looking thing, and she slams it directly into the wall, and the wall starts like transforming it into half a truck. She's trying to get out of it, and she finally was able to escape the truck, but she looks back at them, looks back at the border, and says, you know what, I'm getting through this thing no matter what it does to me. And she charges right through that without the helmet and everything. She's getting pulled apart inside the border, which is some really great visuals. Again, this show reminds me a lot of Annihilation, which was a very trippy and cool sci-fi movie from Alex Garland, which I absolutely love. And all these different things that kind of remind me of it. It's really cool to see in a Marvel property and how different they're doing things. And this is how, of course, Monica Rambeau gets her powers. She goes through it, her eyes start to glow, and then once she gets through, she gets to see all these light waves, which in the comics she kind of plays. Her name is either Proton, which is more recently, or when she first started off, she was a different version of Captain Marvel. So the power set is kind of similar, but she is able to manipulate light waves and X-rays and gamma rays and all the things in the light spectrum, and whether or not she takes one of those, spectrums of light and she's able to use it and transform her body to be able to harness that type of power, which is a really cool aspect of her superhero name, her proton abilities, which is super cool that we get to see this character go on into being in this show, not only this show, and that possibly having a fight off with her and Wanda later on, but we get to see her in Captain Marvel too, which is really interesting because we have a lot of setup of what could possibly be going on between those two. Also in the outside world, there's more reveals that that Hayward is kind of trying to, well, at least he was grabbing Vision's body to recreate him, to bring him back as a weapon for himself. So again, Hayward has some nefarious plots behind him as well. Is he being controlled? Is he just doing these things because he's like an evil guy? But he was also, which I did see this in tweets that went like semi-viral, but he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and the villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp called him on the phone, and he was a part of the FBI, and he said, oh, you got to do this, and he was kind of the informant for them. So this guy has been in shady dealings before, so it's no surprise that he's also shady in this show as well. And throughout the entire episode, you get little hints and little bits and pieces of somebody is behind the camera. Wanda is talking to somebody off camera starts speaking to her and asking her questions. She's like, you're not supposed to talk. And kind of getting little hints of what Darcy's saying, like, oh, we don't know who this imposter Pietro is. We don't know what this is about. We don't know what that's about. And another thing I forgot to talk about this for Vision is he learns about what happened beforehand, how Wanda had to not only kill Vision, but the one that was erased and rewinded, and she had to watch Vision die. So all this trauma that happened from Wanda's perspective of just being a couple weeks ago to Vision's perspective of it feeling like it was somebody else completely. And so that was another interesting thing. But you do get hints at something possibly being greater outside of this. And at the end of the episode, you get the confrontation between Monica and Wanda, and Agnes comes in, swoops her away, and tells her to go into the basement because that's where her kids are. And you get to see this lair, this witch's lair of all these different artifacts and things. And it is confirmed that she is playing Agatha Harkness from the comics, which I did a little bit of research. I don't know everything about Agatha Harkness. I know she had a lot to do during the Salem witch trials during the 17th century. So that's a very interesting storyline that I don't think they'll ever actually dive into in the movies or in the shows. But it's interesting to see that they're bringing this character who has centuries of I guess, knowledge and of all this abilities of using magic to do these different things, and how she's also another magical being in this hex, and Wanda wasn't the only one manipulating things. You get to see snapshots in the best way possible because, again, this is a sitcom thing, so you get to see her title cards of starring Agatha Harkness throughout all the different versions of all the different sitcoms that they've done in the show, which was so funny. And the song that's playing of it saying like, oh, it was Agatha the entire time. This reveal was done in the most WandaVision way possible, and I loved every second of that. And although we have kind of I predicted that she was Agatha Harkness before in some of my previous videos because, again, I did a little bit of research on the House of M comics, and she had a big part to do with that. And so I guess it was kind of expected, and there are still some things that we get to see in the after credit scene that is interesting, but it didn't lessen the reveal because of how fun it was revealed. I really enjoyed this reveal, and whether or not the kids are real or not, because that was a big aspect of her in the comics, was she was the one to basically tell Wanda that her children were not real and they were artifacts of Mephisto, and when Mephisto absorbed them back into his body, she lost him again, and so she was able to wipe that memory of that loss and that grief from Wanda's mind. And so I think that's the direction that they're heading in with this show. I'm not sure if these kids are real or if they're an artifact of Mephisto, which if they do bring in Mephisto, that'd be really cool to see a Nightmare / Mephisto possible, mix between those two characters for the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, have that be the villain for that movie, because this is supposed to lead directly into that. So that can be a very fascinating story. I need to look up more into those characters and kind of figure out who they are and what they're about. because that's who I think Evan Peters is playing. I think he's playing the husband of Agnes in the sitcom world, and I think that he's possibly Mephisto. And I saw one Twitter thread of talking about whether or not it's disappointing for him to not be playing Quicksilver from the X-Men movies. Was it just an inside joke that all of us know because we are in the real world and we do know that there are the X-Men movies and there's a Quicksilver in those ones, and we had, the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Quicksilver, and it's kind of a fun little fan casting thing that they're kind of plopping him in there. But of course this is kind of introducing the multiverse possibly, so what is that? Why him? Is there a purpose for it being that actor, or is it just an inside joke for us fans who know the joke of it all? And I've been watching all the X-Men movies just to get a refresher on all of them, and maybe I've been doing that for nothing. Who knows? Maybe Marvel's just playing with us fans and teasing us, and they're leading up to the whole Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie that's possibly going to be a thing. And who knows if the big cameo at the end of this season that they've all been hyping up is like, Paul Bettany has been talking about he's always wanted to work with this actor. Who has he not worked with? Who could this cameo be? And apparently it's not Doctor Strange, or at least that's not the big one that they're talking about. There's still a chance that Doctor Strange could pop up in the final moments of this show, but who knows? And yes, there was an after credit scene. You get to see Monica break in, look down into the basement, and you get to see Evan Peters up behind her having some weird other magical things around him. So I don't know exactly what that means for his character. Again, I have not had as much time to research because I want to get this video out as quick as possible. So let me know in the comments down below all your theories, all your thoughts. Who is Mephisto? I'm going to do research on my own anyways, but comment down below what you think this could all be. What direction are they going to go? Because we have only 2 episodes left. Things are coming to a head. We got our big end of the second act reveal with Agatha Harkness in a very fun sitcom-y way. Is this the end of the sitcoms? Because we just did the 2010s and we're pretty much caught up because obviously they can't do the 2020s. So we've reached the end of the sitcom era. Things are going insane. Things are falling apart. So Wanda has reached a pivotal point in her arc, and I do believe that she's going to be told that her children are not real in the next episode, which is going to be absolutely devastating for the character. Will she turn into the villain by the end of the season, or will she become the hero that is able to turn things around and save everybody in the end? Who knows? Like I said, comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one. I just did a review for Saint Maud, so I don't just do Marvel reviews. I do A24 reviews and all different movie reviews of a bunch of different things. I'm possibly going to be doing a DCEU series reviewing all the movies that I haven't seen or I haven't reviewed from that series on this channel. So subscribe for that as well. Leave a like, comment down below, and I hope to see you all in my next one.